Good morning. I'm 10 minutes late getting started, but that's okay. I was helping a colleague find a food truck. That's my excuse. So I'll just start. So my name is Krista DeHerrea. I work for Colorado Mountain News Media. I'm one of the few folks at this conference that is actually from the hills and works in the hills. So my territory, so Colorado Mountain News Media owns all of the newspapers in the northern half of Colorado. So Aspen, Summit County, Steamboat Springs, Vail, Valley, Craig. I kind of take that whole northern territory. And they started a new division about 3 years ago doing events, which is also considered marketing, experiential marketing. So as a newspaper agency, we have been trying really hard to diversify. And so that's where I came into their picture, which is an interesting new dynamic for me as far as an event coordinator is concerned. Prior to this, I used to actually work for government. I used to work for municipality. And so the shift from paying attention to expenditures solely and with a government entity, they're not so much concerned about revenue or sponsorship sales, to now having work for a for-profit corporation, which all they ever talk about is revenue and don't even care about expenses, which to me, it's a balance of the two. So what I'm going to be talking about today is sponsorship sales and the art of the sale. And where it comes really interesting in my new world is working for a newspaper agency. I have sales reps that work for all of the newspapers, but they're selling newspaper ads or digital or all of our other tools. But sponsorship sales eludes them. It absolutely eludes them. They can sell a newspaper ad overnight, put it in the paper, it's done, they understand the product, it's easy. Sponsorship sales are a little bit different because there's so much more to the sale. There's a package, there's elements, there's benefits, there's knowing how the event works. So that part scares them because they don't have the time to actually go out there and invest their brain into the event. So it's a new dynamic and it's a big education and it's a big uproar. So I offer to do this presentation largely because I do it every single day at work, teaching trained sales reps how to sell sponsorships. It is an art form. It truly, truly is. So I'm going to start. Steve? It's plugged in. Am I not? Yeah. And I'm, let's see here. Pardon our technical difficulties. Well, anyway, I'll just keep talking. How about that? I can do that nicely. So as an event coordinator, you're paying attention to all of the things, not just sponsorship sales. And if you have the opportunity, it is always my recommendation to try to get other folks to invest time in learning how to sell sponsorships within your teams. I have found over the years that it's really easy for me to sell sponsorships, but you're more successful in selling more sponsorships if you can get more team members trained and involved in the sponsorship sale and invested into the event, not just in their niche of the event. And the reason I say that is it's all about you're impassioned in the event. It's really easy to sell something or to talk somebody into investing in your event if you love it. It's really, really easy. So what I'm trying to embody in my sales associates is you need to love the event. Understand the breadth of the event and get into it, and then it's really easy to sell. You're not actually selling it. You're actually showing them an opportunity. You're bringing them in as a partner. So that's where I kind of want to start all of the conversation here. sometimes I joke around. You'll have to bear with me. I'm kind of a meme girl. I'm not terribly funny, so I rely on others to be funny for me. So I love memes. But this one is fun. A lot of people think that event planning is an easy job, that anybody can do it. You can plan birthday parties, but planning an event, large-scale event like Pride Fest, John said the other day, he's impassioned by that event. So planning it is not always easy, but it comes naturally. That's, I guess, the best way to say it. So when people think, what do my friends think I do? We just do nothing but party, although yesterday we did a really good job of that out on the patio. But what my parents think I do, although my mom's an event coordinator as well, it's kind of an incestuous thing in my family. My sister, you all met her yesterday. She works for DIA. She's an event coordinator as well. Hollywood doesn't know anything about me, and that's okay. So I'm not going to even address that one. Interns, I do have interns. They think that we are just amazing people, and they want to be with us. It was so cute. Yesterday, I was talking to the gal that was the bartender, and she thinks that we are the coolest people. And I told her, I said, well, any one of these really cool people will sit down and talk to you about events because we love it. What I think I do, sometimes I do think I'm a ringleader, but that's the whole fun of it. It's a lot of flash and it's a lot of glam, but everybody gets involved in it, all of your team members. And what we actually do is a whole lot of heavy lifting. But again, if you're having fun and you're doing a good job at it, then it's not terribly hard. By the numbers. So sponsorship sales, as far as a marketing tactic, is probably one of the #1 most successful elements in marketing as a general whole. Again, I work for a marketing agency. We sell newspaper. We sell digital. We have partnerships with radio. We have partnerships with TV. We have all of those mass media tools. We have social. We have a whole digital department. But there is nothing like an experience. There is nothing like a business being able to sit down and have a conversation with somebody about their products. That's what we're doing on a day-to-day basis with our attendees as well. Why not bring in your business partners to participate in that experiential marketing? Live events, my opinion, I am in favor of what Dean said in regard to live events. Humans are communal by nature. They want to be with other humans. I mean, look at all of us. We're here in the middle of a pandemic, socially distancing, because we want to be with other people. We want to hear. We want to interact with other people. Virtual is working. It's okay, but we've had some glitches and we've had some issues, and we've had people listening in. The engagement is not the same as when you're in person. You can still get that engagement. You can still keep the conversation going, but there is nothing like that human contact. And that's what you need to keep in your mind every time you're thinking about sponsorship design, sponsorship sales, and who you're going to target. Consumer reception. So on the flip side of it, consumers actually are more apt to buy if they actually have that one-on-one experience. You're not going to go out and buy a car unless you actually get to drive it. I don't even know how they sell cars over the internet sight unseen, unless you just trust that company or you trust that brand. You can build that trust through events. You can build that trust in that experiential piece. From a virtual side of things, it's not as engaging as in a live event, but it's all about sharing and your consumers understanding your product, which is what you're offering through your event. The benefits for the client, it's all about engagement, connectivity, brand management, differentiating yourself from customers, product placement, and sales. You have to have all of those factors in your mind when you're designing your product or your packages for your event. You also have to keep in mind the benefits for your event. Revenue is certainly one of them. Connectivity is certainly another. Credibility, your expense savings, trade. I'm a super proponent of trade. If it's quality trade, if it makes a difference to your bottom line, if you can save something that you would have had to have spent money on, trade. I'm all about it. Audience growth and relationship. The big factor is your audience. As I mentioned before, it's about embodying the event. If you can embrace the mission and brand of the event, if you guys heard John yesterday when he was talking about Pride Fest, why was Pride Fest on a virtual level so successful? Because people embody that. That's who they are. And that event is an expression of who that demographic or that audience is. Any event can have that. I have another event that I do called the Western Colorado Outdoor Sportsman Expo, or Westco Expo for people who have dry mouths. It's all about hunting and fishing and biking and cycling and all the things that we love to do in the state of Colorado. We have a lot of different activities and going on inside the event, but there are so many people that are so passionate about hunting, super passionate about fishing, super passionate about cycling. They're going to come to the event and they're going to embody the event because that's who they are. That's their personality. And if you can sell that embodiment to a business that makes sense to that event, then you're going to have the easiest sell. Understand the lay of the land. Understand the event itself. Get any sales reps that are involved or yourself. You understand intimately the event. Understand the psychographics and the demographics of your attendees, and not just, I am targeting people that are age 35 to 45, or it's an older crowd, or it's a younger crowd. But understand the psychographics. So one of the other really important things is to try to do what we call a device ID report, and there are lots of agencies out there. If you can figure out the demographics and their actual habits, that is a huge, huge piece that's really important to put in your sales collateral and to put into your pitch. So what you can do, and a couple ways you can do that is you can pull that out of your Google Analytics if your event has already existed. Pull that out of your Google Analytics to figure out, what are people doing? What are their behaviors? What are their interests? What do they like? Because what we found with Westco Expo, in its infancy, it was just hunting and fishing. So we hit that crowd like nobody's business. But then we were missing a whole other half of the state. What do those people also like to do? Fishermen don't just fish 24/7 every day, all the time. I'm pretty sure most of them either have a wife or a girlfriend or a family. So there's that piece of their life that you're not speaking to. What about those hunting folks? 99% of the time, hunters don't go up into the mountains by themselves. They're going to go with a buddy. They're probably going to go on some sort of a piece of equipment like ATVs or whatever. So then we started thinking about it. We're like, well, we need to start bringing in these other audiences if we want to see this event grow. Not only remain sustainable and relevant, but grow. So you're not just speaking directly to the one demographic, but you're going to speak to all the other behaviors within that demographic. So that's why we took the event and expanded it much more. The other thing that does too is it also gives you an opportunity to find more elements to bring in more sponsors. So, and I will get to that comment here in a second. I get excited and then I start talking off and ramble. So that's why I have to have a PowerPoint to keep me on task. It's a disease. My sister and I both have that disease. Knowing your client. Know who your client is. It's really, really important that you understand who they are, not just as a business, not just as a position within that business, but understand who they are as a person. So one of the sponsors that we have up in the mountains, Alpine Bank. Alpine Bank very specifically sponsors certain types of events, certain essence events that are related to community, to family. And if you don't have those built into your event, Alpine Bank just straight up won't even talk to you. So it's really, really important to understand your client and understand the person that you're actually talking to. Do your homework. Figure out who they are. Talk to friends. So do you know Sue Davis from Alpine Bank? Yeah, I do. Her kid is actually on my soccer team. Get to know those pieces. So, hey, I heard your kid was had a soccer game the other day. How did he do? Did he win? Has nothing to do with the event, but you're showing empathy for your client too. So that's super important. Know their personal passions, and know who to pitch to. Don't be afraid to go to the top, and then it'll trickle down to the person that you're actually supposed to talk to. So don't start with a secretary, move your way up. Start at the top and move your way down, if that's at all possible. Selling in person. Small money could lead to big money. So don't be afraid to hit up the smaller sponsors. Of course, you want the big dog, right? You want the big cash sponsors, the 10,000, the 5,000, the higher, and more than that. Of course, you want those folks. But you also need the small money, because the small money will help you sell the big money, if that makes sense. So let's say you have all these other smaller sponsors involved. You can go to that big dog and say, well, we have X, Y, and Z, and they're involved. And that kind of helps bring your credibility up. So don't be afraid. The other one too is sell it in person. No sponsorship. I mean, some of the smaller, $500 level, smaller sponsorships, especially if you know the client, they're going to re-up, then maybe you could do it with a phone call. But I still believe that you should have that personal one-on-one, even if it is in a Zoom. And I know that that's the nature of the beast these days. But as things start to open up and you start to have those opportunities, if you can sell it in person, so much more memorable. I feel like I am zoomed out. How many people in this room are zoomed out? I'm over it. I want to sit down and have a conversation with a colleague of mine. I want to have a sit down and have a conversation with one of my sponsors, whether I'm selling the event or not selling the event. Just to have that interpersonal connection makes a difference. And I guarantee you'll see it in your bottom line. Collateral. So on all of your tables, I put some samples of some collateral just for you to either keep or look at or whatever. These are a couple of pieces of new collateral. We have completely redesigned all of our collateral within our company because what I was finding is our sales reps were not armed with all of the information that they needed to actually be successful in their sale. So what you will find, and I'm just going to buzz through some of these things, you'll see a branded cover. The cover should not tell the story in words. It should tell the story in pictures in the best way that you can. I'm also going to throw in the notion that anymore in this virtual world, and God love the sustainability gal, I still believe in pamphlets because you have to leave something with them. But I also think that you can utilize digital forms as well. So like Google Slides, you can create a slide deck with all of these things built in and then utilize that and present it to your sponsors. So let's say, for example, you are on a virtual Zoom with them. Instead of handing them a piece of paper, obviously, because you're not sitting across the table from them, you can actually run through a slideshow and then leave them that link. You can also, if you do have the opportunity to sit with them in person, you can leave the package that is what you want to pitch to them with them, but then show them those other pieces, the informational pieces, the demographic pieces. Give them the essence. If you have video, blend that into your slide deck because video speaks louder than words. Caution on the video, don't make it longer than 15 seconds because they don't have time or patience for longer than 15 seconds. So just get the essence of what the event is in that. That's kind of your branding cover, but video speaks 1,000 words. Same thing as social. Everybody knows that video gets way more likes, with way more engagement than words or pictures. So video is great. In there you will see a snapshot of the event, the load in, the information, dates, times, the basics. Then there's another page in there with your demographics. If you're a brand new event and you don't have demographics, you actually do have demographics. You can go to census, you can go to data, you can find out who's in your region. You can extract from other partners. If there are nonprofits that support that industry in some fashion, you can pull data from that. You can run surveys to get that information, but it's really critical that your sponsors understand who's coming to this event or who you're trying to target. So utilize that demographic and marketing reach information. Marketing reach. Have your marketing plan in there, even if it's a really small bullet point of just bam, bam, bam. Don't get into hyper depth about your marketing plan, but just give them a snapshot of what you're planning on doing and how you're planning on getting the word out. Because I guarantee that's what your sponsors want to know is how are you going to get my brand out there and in everybody's faces, not just at the event, but prior to the event and post-event. Packages. I am going to buzz through these because I did slides and I have to tell you, I've been sitting through all these sessions and I have been slicing and dicing my presentation. So if I feel like I'm all over the place, that's why. But I'm just going to buzz through here. Packages. So on your packages, first and foremost, ditch gold, silver, bronze. Seriously. That is so 1980s. Don't include them. Okay? Look to your event. Again, your best sale is when you embody the event. Look at your sponsor and think, how can I get them involved? Think completely out of the box. Don't just have like a presenting sponsor, maybe a mid-level sponsor, and then a cheaper sponsor. You want to diversify your money, but you also want to diversify opportunities at the event. So if you look at the Westco Expo sponsorship packages, you will see the main stage is a sponsorship. You will see the virtual platform is a sponsorship. You will see that you have, I'm I mean, I'm trying to think. We have a gun show at our event. That's a sponsorship. At another event, we had porta potties. That was a sponsorship. I mean, how do you sell a porta potty? I know how you sell a porta potty. You put a plastic sleeve on the inside of the shitter while they're going to the bathroom, and there is an ad right there in front of them. There you have a captive audience right there. Sponsor portalets. Sponsor recycling. If you have a company that is impassioned about sustainability, get them to come and sponsor your banks. You can get big signage that goes behind your trash cans and your recycling bins and say, hey, trash and recycling, these are our goals, sponsored by. That is another sustainable sponsor too, because if you have goals, like we were talking yesterday with Lindsay, if you have sustainability goals that you're trying to reach, bring that sponsor along with you. Have them start on that journey and go through that journey with you throughout. And then when you have successes, you're sharing that success, not just with your team colleagues, but also with your sponsor. And then they can go on social media and say, look at what we did with X event. We managed to get it 5 years ago from, everybody was throwing trash away to now we're almost zero waste. What a great message to be able to be a part of. So think out of the box. And I said this before, trade is good, but trade has to be smart trade. So it's only should be things that you would have paid cash for. If you need it, you have to have it. Try to get some trade. Media is your best trade partner. If you can work out some trade and you're probably going to have to pay something to media, but if you can trade them out, show them as a sponsor, they'll give you 10 times what you're purchasing. So trade. Let's see. I know what I wanted to show you. So also in these packages, a really important element that we had not put in our packages until this year, and I have learned that it is very critical, is have an information sheet for yourself. Not something that you're going to hand to the client, but something that so if they ask you a question, you have all of the information to where you can answer that question intelligently. So have that internal document for yourself with all the things, and have it in a bullet point, have it easy to reference. But that internal document is really, really critical. Again, do not give it to your client. That's for you. That's your special trick. On the Westco Expo 1-2, you'll also see a sponsor benefits grid. So in a minute, I will talk a little bit about being intentional. When you go to sell a sponsorship, you really need to be intentional. Again, you've learned about your client. You know what their passions are. You know what their loves are. So you want to pitch a package. Don't hand them the whole packet and say, what do you think? Does any of this work for me or work for you? No, you want to be intentional. If you're going to go to Alpine Bank and you want them to be the big dog, figure out what their passions are. Create a package that makes sense for that business and just pitch that. If they come back to you and say, God, I really don't have 10,000. I have 8 or I have 5, then you can whittle bits and parts out of your package. Or if they say, I just don't have that money, I have like half that, then you can pull out another sheet and say, well, we do have these other opportunities, but don't give them the farm at first, back it off a little bit, and then you can represent. The other one too is that you can take that information and say, okay, I'm going to absorb that. And I'd like to talk to you in a couple of weeks if that's okay. And I want to come up with a package that better meets your needs. Don't feel like you have to sell it right then and there. Give it some time. Give them some breathing room and yourself some breathing room so that you can give them what they want. Timing is everything. Timing is huge. Everybody's doing their budgets in the fall. Now is the time to be selling sponsorships. Now, I do realize that we are in the middle of a pandemic and everybody's holding on to their pocketbooks. We can still be engaging in that conversation. I can guarantee you there are large-scale businesses that have money and they want to spend it and they want to be engaged. It's a matter of how you can show them what you have to reach their marketing goals. Smaller businesses are not going to be as lucrative right now because they're just trying to hold their heads above water. But the bigger ones, they still want to spend their money. So don't be afraid to at least try and set up meetings. And maybe it's just a really soft pitch. Maybe it's not like, here, you need to be the presenting sponsor. Maybe just find out a little bit about where they're going. How do they feel about the pandemic? How do they feel? How's their business doing at this particular time in the pandemic? Anyway, so that's my pitch on fall. Don't be afraid to sell sponsorships right now. It is going to be difficult, and you're going to have to be prepared for a lot of no's, or you're going to have to be prepared for a lot of I don't knows. But don't be afraid to be communicating. Jumping to the top of the food chain. It's really important. Again, go to the top of the food chain, and then they'll trickle you down to the person that you need to be talking to. But if you start from the bottom, you'll never make it to the top. Find out if they respond to emails or phone calls. Sometimes you can send an email and say, hey, I'd love to set up a meeting with you, and that will be okay. But emails are a dime a dozen anymore. I mean, I almost feel like communicating via email is like the last resort for me. I would almost rather just pick up the phone. I'm old school. I can Zoom all day of my life, but I'd rather pick up the phone and just talk to them. It's okay to not have their face in front of me. So find out what their preference is. And then again, don't pitch during the email or in an email. Don't pitch over the phone. Set up the meeting with those tools, but don't try to pitch yet. This is just an example of one kind of like elevator speech of how to get a phone call or how to get a meeting. Keep it simple. Don't over explain yourself, which right now I'm having a very hard time doing, but keep your conversation light. Keep it in, hey, how are you? How's everybody doing? Find out about how the business is. I heard you had a really great success with X project or whatever. Talk to them, keep the conversation light. See later on, once you get the meeting, get yourself a pitch partner, somebody who can go with you. Strength in numbers, I believe. Prepare. Gather your branded event collateral. Figure out what's going to work. Be prepared to have a meeting with more than one person. I scheduled a meeting, and I thought I was going to meet with just the executive director, and I ended up meeting with a panel of 5 people for a sponsorship pitch. And it's a little intimidating, but you have to be prepared for that because they all want to hear what you have to say. That should be a good sign. If they're willing to pull their team members out of other things to sit down and listen to you and listen to what you have to say, that's positive. Invite a key player to go with you. Don't be afraid. We had a sponsor for an event, Restaurant Week, in Roaring Fork Valley. The sponsor had been a part of the event. They were a little upset with something that had happened, and I will just say that I wasn't involved with the event that time at that point, but we had to do some serious collateral damage, and we ended up sending 3 of us. We sent the publisher, myself, and the sales rep that were all related to this client and sat down with him. And he appreciated that we took our time to set up the meeting and talk to him from all 3 different angles. He ended up re-upping the sponsorship, and he was elated with the new sponsorship because we brought in new ideas, new perspectives, and we created a package that was 100% custom to him. So it was great. It worked out wonderful. What else? Again, create perks and event assets that appeal to your client and be intentional. Again, don't pitch the farm. Pitch intentional packages that make sense to that client. The other one, too, is just be yourself. I mean, when Dean was talking earlier, be vulnerable, be you. Because if you try to go in there and be something that you're not or try to be, a number one salesperson, it's not going to work. You have to be yourself. And it is, again, if you embody the event, it's really easy to be yourself because you love what you're doing. You love your event. Start with a 30-second elevator speech. Just say, hey, we're really excited to be here. This event has grown over the last couple of years, and we're really excited to kind of show you some things. But we want to hear a little bit about what's going on in your world and your marketing plans and your goals. Don't overwhelm them. Again, be intentional with what packages you pitch them. And brainstorm with them. Again, when we had our 3 partners go in with this one guy, we were all just like hammering out ideas, but we were also writing them down. And then when he hammered out ideas, we wrote it down. And then we reconfigured that package and made it work. Budget. So it's always the hardest question to ask is, what is your budget? Where is your budget? What I like to do is I like to talk to other events. I don't have a problem calling my event colleagues and say, Alpine Bank was a sponsor for your event. Do you mind me asking how much they spent? What kind of packages or what kind of benefits did they like? I don't have a problem with that. And frankly, I don't have a problem sharing that with anyone else. So talk with others and kind of find out where their bandwidth is. Yeah, and it may need further meetings. This is what you think your client should be spending, and this is what their budget actually is, soft and fuzzy. Yes. Oh, almost every single sponsorship sale I've been on, no one's going to give you, they're not going to give you their entire sponsorship budget or their entire marketing budget. They're going to give you pieces and parts of that budget. But where you can sell them on is how you can hit all the marks, you know? If their goals are X, Y, and Z, and you hit all 3 of those pieces with your package, you're going to get closer to your expectation versus their budget. Or vice versa, you can get closer to their budget than and they're going to also exceed their expectations. And then, of course, follow up. So give them a little bit of space, but just say, hey, thank you for meeting with us. We're really excited. We're going to put together a custom package that makes sense. If you like the package that I left you, we can kind of tweak that, whatever fits your needs. And then follow up with them in a couple of weeks or 2 weeks. To just kind of find out where their head is, and that can just be done with a phone call. If you need to set up another meeting, then that's great too, because again, they're investing their time with you. You want to be top of mind, but you don't want to be annoying, of course. And if they say not this year, invite them to your events. Invite them to come be a part of it. So for Balloon Festival this last year, and on the next panel, I'll be talking a little bit more about what we wanted to do and what we ended up doing. We still had to do the event for the sake of the community and for our business partners on that event. We had a $10,000 sponsor, Vectra Bank. And Vectra Bank came to us and said, we believe in this event, but we believe in this event because you're still trying to make the event happen in some fashion or another. We also don't want to be associated with anything that's going to get anybody sick. Vectra Bank, presenting sponsor of the Steamboat Balloon Festival, and they had a whole outbreak because of the festival. They don't want that. So they said, whatever it is that you're willing to do to try to make this happen for our community, we appreciate that, and we're going to stay on board. We were excited about that. So what we did was we completely rewrote their entire sponsorship package and started adding in elements that none of us ever even thought of. So try to keep them engaged. And then what we did all summer long was we created other assets, like we did a coloring contest. We tossed in the newspaper as a full page ad a line art balloon drawing, and we had kids enter it, and then the winner got to take a balloon ride. That cost us no money whatsoever. And Vectra Bank was over the moon. We also did, with another sponsorship, we did a contest, an email contest, where we emailed out and say, enter to win, and you could get, and they went out and got all these tickets to movies and gas stations, and it was just like this big community package of stuff, and we ended up giving that out. That made Glenwood Insurance ecstatic, because that was getting their brand out there. Even though it was semi-related to the event, but also a little bit different, it was still an asset, and it didn't cost us a cent. They got all of the prizes. We didn't even get the prizes. We just ran the contest for them. So thinking out of the box, and again, freebies. Give them tickets, give them beer. I mean, in a real world, if we're in a live event, it really doesn't cost you that much to give them a dozen tickets for beer. It really doesn't. They're having fun, they're romancing, they're getting the essence of the event, and then they'll come back and say, yeah, I want to be a part of that. That sounds like a great event for us. We saw how people were engaging. They said yes, so now what do you do? That's a great thing. I didn't start with they said no. I start with they said yes, because I'm a yes girl. Sponsorship agreements. How many of you all have a sponsorship agreement that you actually have the client wet sign or e-sign in some fashion? Am I seriously the only one in this room that has sponsorship agreements? You should always have a sponsorship agreement. And here's the reasons. I know that they're a pain in the butt, but you should always have a sponsorship agreement because it's a checklist. It's a checklist for you to what it is that you're supposed to be providing your client, and it's also a checklist for them on the little things that they have to provide you, like banners or if they get a booth or whatever. The other pieces of it that's really important, especially now in all this COVID world, if you are going to have a live event, is you should have a hold harmless and you should have a force majeure in there. That should be true of any of your contractors, but it should also be part of your actual contract itself. So if something happens and your event is no longer viable and you can't actually do it, you have to figure out how you can still make those sponsors happy. or allow them the opportunity to get out of their contract. You do not want to alienate a sponsorship because you all of a sudden said, sorry, the event can't happen, but we have your money. So sponsorship agreements are critical, and they don't need to be long, lengthy, crazy agreements. It should just have the bullet points of what you're supposed to provide them and what they're supposed to provide you. And it provides a paper trail. So I several times have come into an event with no notes, no paperwork, no nothing, no knowledge of the event, and I have to start from scratch. Sponsorship agreements and budgets are the two pieces of any event that you can get at least some sort of a picture of how that event happened. So keep a paper trail. It's really, really important. Again, it's good for the event. It's good for you. I'm going to keep moving. Execution. Get the sponsor to sign the agreement and just use e-sign. You're going to get a much faster sponsorship signature if you just get an e-sign, and you can just do that through Google. You can do that through PDF. Any of those pieces, you can get an e-sign. Collect the assets from the client at least 2 weeks out from the event if you can, unless they're a big sponsor of events. It may be harder to get banners, but get all that stuff in advance. Invite them to walkthroughs. Have them be a part of it. Hey, I want to pick my booth, or I like this location better, or have you thought about this? Take all of their ideas into consideration. You may or may not take all of their ideas and implement them, but at least listen. Working with your event coordinator to ensure the on-site execution. Some of us are high level. It is really important that our staff understands what involvement the sponsor has in the event. So just make sure that they understand that and that they are going to go down that checklist and make sure that all the things you promised actually happens. And you'd be surprised at how many events don't actually do that. And it will come back to bite you in the butt. So make sure that you provide everything and your staff understands everything that you're supposed to provide. Be at the event with them. I usually, whenever I'm doing big festivals, I will walk around and I will talk to all of my vendors and I will talk to all of my sponsors, but I find a time when I'm not running around like a crazy person. Take a deep breath, go get a bottle of water, and just wander around. Carve out an hour of your festival, if it's a large festival, to just wander around and socialize. It's really, really important. Socialize with your attendees, socialize with your sponsors, because you get a better feel for what people are liking about the event and what they want to see changed. Sponsors are the first person, as well as vendors, are the first people to tell you when something's not working. Wrap up. Always make sure that you do a really professional wrap-up presentation. I just duplicated my slide. Always have a good wrap-up presentation, something with demographics, pull all of your analytics, get some social media information, how many touch points, impressions, talk to all of your media partners, get all of those pieces and parts and put it into a very simple presentation. And again, Google Slides is your friend. Put it into a little PowerPoint slide presentation. If you have a little video, toss that in there about how the event went. They will appreciate that, and then they can share that with their executives, and then they may spend more money the following year. Now we're going to talk about if they say no. Bummer. I always look at crisis as opportunity. So if they are not a sponsor this year, they might be a sponsor next year, or maybe not next year, but the year after that. But don't just discard them. You know, keep the conversation alive. Try virtual webinars. When we did Westco Expo, when we had planned to do Westco Expo this past spring, that was right in the heart of this pandemic hit. We knew we couldn't do an event. So we had to figure out, okay, how are we going to keep our sponsors who have said, yes, I'm here, keep them engaged. We had sponsors that were not sponsors yet, but we wanted to keep them engaged. So we did a webinar series, and each month we had a series of panelists that talked about different topics. So our first month was on spring fly fishing. So we had a bunch of fly guides that got on there. It was really easy to get sponsors to get involved, especially at a lower level, but then you're keeping that conversation going. We did another month where we did it on hunting. I had Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation come on, and they talked about their elk calling contest. We are now doing the regional qualifier for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation elk calling contest at Westco Expo. New sponsor, didn't have them till the level that they are at now. So crisis can be opportunity. Romance them, get them involved in the virtual side of things, keep the conversation going, and then next year when live events do come back, you've got them in your back pocket. Good friends are hard to find, difficult to leave, and impossible to forget. Your sponsors are your friends. They are your partners. They're your partners in the event. You need them as much as they need you. So just remember, I have a friend who is the general manager of Bighorn Toyota, which is in Glenwood Springs. They are the only Toyota dealership for 4 counties in the mountains. Jennifer Rose has been a friend of mine for years. I know her kids. I know her kids' kids. I know her husband. We actually will go out for cocktails every once in a while, but we are friends because she knows that I'm only going to pitch her what makes sense to her. And she has always appreciated that. The other piece of it is that I have always done exactly what I said I was going to do. If I pitch something to her and she likes it, I always follow through and I always make sure that she's happy. And if she's comes to me and she says, Krista, I have a concern or I have a question, I address it right then and there. And then I also follow up and make sure that she is happy with the result of that solution. And that's why we've been good friends. And I've only known her because I've been selling sponsorships to her for so long. I have people that will come to me and say, you should get Bighorn Toyota to do this event. It's not her thing. I'm not going to pitch it. Well, you should just mention it to her. Just mention it to her. Maybe she'd be game. No, that's not her game. That's not her bag. I'm not going to even bring it up. But I might bring it up to this guy or this other auto dealership because they have a different perspective and that might be a better fit for them. So just keep that in mind. And then also know who doesn't sponsor. It's not worth it for the no-no-nos. At some point, it's okay to cut bait, but still keep the conversation alive. But make them your friends. So just as a quick review, embrace the event. That's going to be your biggest tool in selling the event because you have just embodied it. You know it, you understand it, and you can exude that to your sponsor, and they will understand it. Meet in person always, as often as you can. Even if it is a virtual in person. Bring a buddy if you have the opportunity to bring a buddy. It just strengthens your pitch. Be yourself. Don't be a salesman. Be yourself. Listen and then be intentional with your pitch. Don't give them the farm. And no is never forever. My parting words, and again, I rely on other people with poignant things to say because they can say it quicker and easier than I can. Chase the vision, not the money. The money will end up following you. So very true. So very true. Does anybody have any questions? And I keep looking at this table, but you all are potential sponsors. You are sponsors of CFEA, which is huge. So I'm curious, what brought you into CFEA? What made you sponsor? Cam is a sponsor. And CFEA, as a smaller organization, we had to kind of pivot this event. We turned it into this hybrid. We are lucky enough to be able to have an engaging in-person, but it's a thin crowd. I mean, this is thin for CFEA. We do have some virtual folks listening in. What was the allure to still sponsor, even though we're not in a normal live event setting?
It's important for us to continue to have that presence and to continue to show a position that can be relied on as a beacon, I guess. You know, the larger companies, and I guess in a sense we're still family owned, but we're still one of the larger ones, at least in the city. There are national companies that won't look at this and have a different plan. We have to be community first because this is where our bread's buttered at. So for us, again, if you don't see a national company show up, we have to show up to show that we're here. And then when we do give that example, hopefully we're given the opportunity. I don't think anything is given, but we at least have earned the opportunity to get that look and consideration for a change, which is who was here to support us when we needed them most. It's a mental game. It's a mental game. It's not a financial issue. Paying the little bit of money that is required to participate is fine. The ROI isn't going to be there this year, but the show of force and the show of support is here. And so when somebody needs that product, who did I see last? when you talk about face-to-face, this might be the face-to-face. Whether it's our logo or whether it's our person, we're still prominent, and we may be remembered after this, whereas the other companies that maybe didn't show up aren't necessarily being considered.
Absolutely. So I'll tell a little story, and part of the reason why I pulled you out of the crowd, I had a conversation with him yesterday. I'd never heard of I've been an event coordinator for 25 years, and 10 of those were in Denver. I'd never heard of CAM Services. So I looked up the website, and we got to talking or whatever. I said, well, what other products do you have? And he said, well, we do fencing, and that's huge because there's not a lot of barricading fencing companies. There are, but I wanted to understand what separated his company out. So I went to his website, and I was looking through at all of his products, and 90% of their products are not event related. But what was an interesting thing that I pulled out of our conversation was you're starting this new kind of lead, this new division in events within CAM Services. That would have been and those are sort of like those niche pieces that you can pull out. I would never have known that if I just said CAM Services, they're not a sponsor, they don't do events. Well, absolutely, that's a huge asset. And the fact that he's willing to partner and do collaborations with other companies to try to get their name and their word out, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. But I would never have been able to reap that out of just a website. So that person-to-person conversation was critical. It was absolutely critical. I found out about your services, and there's possibly some trade opportunities there, which is great. There's also some, hey, I'm going to forward your information over to my other event colleague who could potentially use your services. So that's important. Ira, back there in the back, tell me why Happy Llama has always you've always sponsored CFEA, right?
Yeah, we've been a sponsor for many years, and this year it was one of the words he alluded to, but it was the reliability. We saw it as an opportunity to show a consistency in our brand where other people disappeared, and we thought it was an opportunity to, in a smaller environment, have a bigger impact. And so that was one piece from the business side, and then it has always been a community value. We as a company believe that events are community. We believe that's part of what makes community great. So when we came to supporting our community within this association, it was a no-brainer.
Something that Ira just said that I think is really critical too is you can actually bring a sponsor in at a lower level, and then you can build them over years. Once they see the value of your event, bring them in at a smaller level. That smaller level could potentially end up over here. You know what I mean? So don't discount them because they came in at a $500 level. For Hot Air Balloons Rodeo, we have $750 balloon sponsorships. They get a ride in a hot air balloon, and they get their banner on the basket, and they get a half-page ad in the newspaper. It's a great deal, honestly, because an experience like riding in a hot air balloon is expensive and priceless. It's normally $750 just for one person to ride in a hot air balloon. But to have two people from your company with your banner, oh, and by the way, you get a half-page ad, there is some serious value in that. We sell the crap out of those sponsorships, right? But we have had sponsors that have jumped from that $750 level all the way to a $5,000 level like that because they see the essence, they see people enjoying the event, and they have that opportunity like, okay, I can ride in a balloon and that's really cool for me, but how is that getting my company to engage with these people? Oh, I see how that company's doing it. I think that's a better idea. I'm going to step to that next level. And then they also see the other perks, like you have all your marketing tools and their brand exposure. That's huge. And I think that consistency is a big thing. So even if they stay at that lower level, every year, try to one-up them a little bit. Not a lot. You're never going to get the 750 to jump right away to a 5,000, but maybe you can incrementally. And then diversify your packages. I'm going to go back to that. Diversify your packages. Have little, cheaper, smaller sponsorships to get some people in the door, and then you can slowly build it up. Don't just start low and then have your top dogs. Have everything blended in between. Yeah.
Krista, do you think that, because I always struggle with this question, do you think that it's worth to have a sponsorship person or specific team and that's all they do? For example, we actually work with Mark McGoffin for our Arapahoe County Fair. He does all of that. Mm-hmm. Before it was in-house, and I would say it was a struggle in that you kind of have to have that certain kind of someone because they're good at it. It's their wheelhouse. I am not an expert in that. It's the least favorite part of my job. If I ever had to do it, I'm like, no, you can take sponsors. So, and then, when I worked at the ranch, I remember that they had a very designated team that's all they did was sell sponsorship for events. And it was like a weight lifted off. So do you think that there's value in that, or is it just best to keep it in-house and designate a person on the existing team?
I do. And it's funny that you say that, because in my prior life, when I was working for municipality, I didn't have a team. I was the team. And sometimes that's in your in some event coordinator situations, you are the team. You can't afford to hire a Mark McGoffin to sell your sponsorships. You have to do it yourself. But what I have learned over the years, and this is the plight of an event coordinator, is you want to hold the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? So your success and your failures are all on you. Your successful sponsorship sales are all on you. So you want to be a part of all the things, right? But I've had to learn as a leader, going back to what Dean was talking about, you have to lead your team and empower your team to be able to be successful in doing that, because you can't carry the weight of your world on your shoulders. I got this new position. When I was working with the town of Gypsum, I had like 6 or 7 events. One was a big festival, but 6 or 7 events. That was totally manageable by me. I work now in 7 counties in Colorado. I have a team of at least 20 to 25 people in every single one of those markets. I can't be everything to everybody. And I have had to really sow my oats and figure out where my place is in the company and where I can help my teams to be successful at their events. They're not my events, they're their events. And that's okay. I am there as a support role. So in answer to your question, we have great sales reps. They're a little scared of selling sponsorships, but they're good salespeople. They know how to sell stuff. They have that DNA. You know what I mean? But what's important as and someone who really embodies the event, maybe go on those big dog sales, go with the pitch. If Mark is going to go and sell a $10,000 sponsor or a $20,000 sponsor or your big presenting sponsors, go with him. Again, you're just giving him more ammunition to be able to sell that sponsorship better. So no, don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. And if it's not your forte and you don't enjoy it, find people who do, but be there as a support role in case a sponsor has to ask a question. Well, what about this? Or how does this work? And what about the layout? A salesperson may or may not know those details, but you do. So you can say, oh, well, this is how we set this up. And then they'll go, oh, I see an idea there. That's where the sales rep's going to take their skill set and go, oh, I see an idea. I see an opportunity. Like that portalet thing that I mentioned earlier, I had never thought of that until I was sitting at a festival, not even my own, and I was in the restroom. I'd waited for so long in a line to go to the bathroom, and I finally got in there, and I sat, and I looked up, and there's this ad staring me in the face. And what did I do? I went to that restaurant, and I actually, it had a QR code on there. I scanned the QR code, and I went in there, and I got 50% off. It was like buy one, get one free appetizers or something like that. Easy. I mean, you could sell a portalet per small restaurant. Engage your community, too. That's another way to bring in new sponsors that you maybe can't bring in at a higher level. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I came in very late, so you may have touched on this, but exclusivity for sponsorships, thank you. How do you handle that, and at what level, and what things do you offer them to make it worth it?
Sure.
On their part and yours?
So presenting sponsors, I do have a philosophy, and I'm glad you brought that up because you did not blend that in, and it is really important when you're building your packages or you're trying to pitch building a package to a specific sponsor. Exclusivity is really important. So Gypsum Days is an event I used to run, a festival that I used to run. We had national country and western talent that came to the show, and we had all the things and a car show and everything. And we had, when I got to that event, 4 presenting sponsors. And I went back to the town and I was like, this is not working because none of them have any exclusivity whatsoever. They were all industry exclusive. So I had a car dealership, I had a bank, I had a real estate agency, and an insurance agency. So they were all 4 completely different industries, which that's critical too. I mean, if you get an Alpine bank in there, don't go pitch another bank. I mean, but that's common sense, I would hope. But exclusivity is really important. Now, if they are willing to spend that dollar amount, I would set the bar high on that presenting sponsorship, give them a whole battery of exclusivity as far as only they get those perks or they get exponential of a perk. So let's say you offer them a booth space. Don't just give them a double booth space. Give them a whole section. And then they can make it their own, you know what I mean? If they want to just have a 10 by 10 tent, that's fine. But if they want to expand it and make it more, again, go through the walkthroughs, find what they want to get out of it, show them that they are a partner in the event, not just a sponsor of the event. They're not giving you money, they are a partner. The other one too that if you can do it is blend them into the name, utilize their brand colors. So let's say, I'm trying to think. We'll talk about, well, I can't talk about Happy Llama because you're a rainbow of colors back there, but like Cam Services, you have a very American looking logo. It's a lot of reds and blues and that sort of thing. If you can figure out from year to year, maybe your logo doesn't change, but maybe the background colors embody your sponsor or your presenting sponsor's colors. So you're finding those niches that are exclusive only to them. So I think there's pieces and parts that you can pull, but I think the big one is just ask them. If you're going to ask for the money, give them the world. And differentiate that. That was the other lesson learned too. Differentiate that presenting sponsor with the next level down by quite a bit of financial. If they're going to be a presenting sponsor, they have to be prepared to pay that top dollar. Now, you can negotiate that top dollar if you know that's the only one you're going to get. You can negotiate that a little bit, but differentiate. Don't get that next level up too close to your presenting sponsorship because they'll buy the cheaper sponsorship. You don't want that either. Does that answer your question, kind of? I think I'm probably waiting on time. Any other questions, concerns, ideas, suggestions on sponsorships? I'm available anytime, phone, Zoom, whatever, to talk sponsorships, ideas. I can help you build packages if you like. And then, of course, news media. I know how to manipulate news media pretty nicely, so I'm happy to help toss that information in there as well. So thank you very much for listening in.